Africa is on the rising. Gone are the days where Africans have gotten beaten by other teams. Last year, 3 out of 4 made it to the second round of the World Cup. And while this year's Olympic outing wasn't so great for reasons that we'll address later in the podcast, there were flashes of individual brilliance that remind us of the talents domiciled in Africa. Today, we welcome Impetus writer Emmanuel Faith, who is quite passionate about African football, to share thoughts and his experiences about the growth of football in the continent. Aside from writing for Impetus, he also founded Fevora, a platform focused on telling the unique stories of African women footballers with his partners. Earlier this year, they released an encompassing African women's football report, the first of its kind, spotlighting over 60 players in more than 20 countries across different regions in Africa. Let's welcome Emmanuel Faith to the podcast. Welcome, Emmanuel.
Hello, everyone. Hello from whatever part of the world you're listening to this, because here in the studio we are from different parts of the world. But what's exciting is that my name is Emmanuel Faith, and I'm super excited about women football, but more passionately narrowing down to the exploit of African women footballers. And I am super delighted to be here today. How are you doing?
What? Good. Also, we have Alex. Alex, where are you?
Yeah, hi Emmanuel. I'm in Wellington, New Zealand, Te Whanganui-a-Tara. So very excited to talk African women's football with you. I know the Women's World Cup was in New Zealand last year, and
Yes.
the African teams were definitely my favourite teams to watch. I went to all the games in Wellington, and I think the African teams were, I think they had the most passion. They were, fiery, and they kind of offer us something different from all the other teams. So super excited. So the first question we've got here, just an introductory question, is walk us through the general climate and, talent discovery and development in Africa.
Oh, that's exciting, and that's probably a great place to kick off. The CAF Women Champions League is ongoing at the moment, and in Africa, one of our core competitions is actually the CAF Women Champions League, because for players that are not playing in Europe or the NWCL, that is where they all shine. That's where they show the world that we are also here to don't forget us. Generally, Africans have avidly done well in the youth competitions, and I know that we will get back to that later. But there are a lot of local clubs. I can speak a lot about Nigeria because I'm from Nigeria. We have a lot of talent development hub. You see them, the Korodu Babes, Delta Queens, Robo FC, and all the big names that we see on the great stage today, the Rashidat Ajibade, the Asiso Shuala, actually came from this very rural development academy. I was on a podcast with some Kenya journalists recently, and they were also talking about how the structure in Nigeria is almost similar to that. In fact, it's more fascinating because they also have universities, contribute to the talent development. So they have sports in university have women's sports clubs where these talents are developed, and then, go to join the under 17 and under 20 and go to the club. So I would say, maybe we are not at that large scale yet, but there are some scattered developments going in here and there that contributes to the long-term results that we see on global scale. Yeah, that's a good way to start.
And the last World Cup was a really great cycle for African teams.
Yes, it was.
3 countries reached the second round of the World Cup. How does that make you feel?
Excited. You can still feel my energy, even though it's over here, right? Coming into the World Cup, nobody gave Africa a chance. And then given that the Africans were not exactly in the easiest group, Nigeria was with Australia and Canada and Ireland. Morocco was with Germany, guys. Morocco was in the same group with Germany. And South Africa was up there with Argentina and Italy. And then even Zambia that didn't make it out, made a good account of themselves. It sent a positive way across to the continent. It's in 2 parts. One, to the officials, and their bureaucracies and idiosyncrasies, as Denise mentioned at the beginning, but also to the young talent, because players can now say, I want to be like Oshuala, oh, I want to be like Katlana, right? Because we've seen these players make great exploits and make the continent proud, at the highest level. So it was positive news, positive vibes across the continent, both for stakeholders and for observers and participants. Yeah.
And I think Denise touched on it earlier that Olympics wasn't so great for African teams. Talk us through what happened there.
No, so two things, right? Especially from an observer point of view. One is just the absence of preparation. As we know, the Olympics is stiffer and more competitive than the World Cup, right? The World Cup is a lot of games played across a lot of time. I mean, the FIFA and all those international bodies are still fighting for more time. But when you compare the time space between the World Cup versus the Olympics, it's smaller, right? There are also lesser countries, right? So it's quick football played in quick pace because that's the only way. That's the only explanation I have for Zambia conceded to Australia, right? Because that was a game that they should definitely have put to bed. So, but alongside that is the paucity of preparations again, our administration, right? We saw that Nigeria, for instance, did not open campaign till 2 weeks to the competition. We saw that Zambia was still clamoring for wages, right? Just like 3 weeks to the competition. So it's less of what the players can do on the field and more of the things that went wrong before they came to the competition. And that's literally just the difference between that 1 year apart. If the government had invested more, they had said, "Oh, we did this, so we can go a bar better." Who knows? We might have an African country in the semi-final match, but it is what it is. We look forward to 2027 and see what happens there.
Yep. And I think the final recent competition we've got are the FIFA Age Group World Cup, so under 17 and under 20. How have African teams fared in those competitions?
Great. That's a good question to ask. And like I said, when I was talking about talent development, if you look at the last under 17 and under 20, I'm currently working on a research article. And between 2010 and 2014, Africans absolutely dominated that space. Until now, if when we still don't have our hand on the trophy yet, we've always made great accounts of ourselves. In fact, the last under 20 competition, yeah, we crashed out. Nigeria, for instance, crashed out in the quarterfinals. But guess who was the goal of the tournament? A Nigerian, right? You check the under 17 in 2022, top three, very interesting. Alongside the energy and the skill and the competence, it's also the entertaining football that you see played at this level, right? And for me, it's a pointer to what can happen at the highest level if the right kind of succession planning is put in place. Because if you have a team, that's the difference between Spain and Nigeria. That is the difference between USA and Ghana. That's the difference between England and Kenya. They keep this group of talents together from under 17. They monitor them as they go into the clubs. The coach actually visits these clubs, ensure that they sign deals that enable them play good football, not just warm the bench, right? And then you see them come back in under 20. We saw that, for example, with Sama Palalero. Played beautiful football at under 17, play excellent at under 20, and then went straight to back academy. And 1 year later, blistering at the World Cup. Another person is Linda Casedo, right? Played 2 and under 17, 2 under 20, signed a contract with Real Madrid. Those are the kind of deliberacy that we need to pay to talent development in Africa. And that's literally what is missing. It's not the paucity of talent, but what are we doing to develop those talents, right? Yeah, so that's the big thing.
One of the things that I see having gone to Africa is that you have just an incredible amount of people to draw on who love the sport. Like you go out to a school and you'll have like 2 balls being kicked around by like 100 people, and they're just like, "Rawr!" And you learn how to play football. Just it's like survival football, and it's a lot of fun. Like culturally, everywhere you go, I find there's a round ball and lots of really bright-eyed kids around. How you have some federations that have done better.
Yes.
As you said, they still need to get better. They still, you have the Nigerias and the South Africas who've been doing this for a while. But you have the emergence of like Morocco. I mean, I saw
they're coming up
in the previous World Cup in France. I saw Cameroon versus England. I mean, obviously Zambia has some incredible players. What
Right now.
other federations are emerging in Africa as ones to watch? And what do you think are the ones who are doing it the best? And I use the best because I feel like a lot of these federations have kind of issues. So just talk us through some of that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely going to give credit to Morocco. And beyond what to see on the surface is also, remember where I talked about CAF Women Champions League? Morocco's club, Asfa FC, has been finalist for the CAF Women Champions League like two tries in a row now. And I think they've won it twice in between. And it just shows the consistency. And then they bidded, and they won to host WAFCON 22. They are saying, hey, we want to play football. We don't want you to see us as an Arabic country or something like that. We are interested in sports. We are interested in talent development. Bring it to our city. And they did that in 2022. And then you have there was it under 20 now? Yes, under 20, also go up there and say, we are not just developing the younger team. I mean, in our report, we spotlighted Nesrin Elchad. Nesrin Elchad is one of the strongest centre backs at 20, not just in Africa, but literally in Diwan Akema over there, right? So Morocco has paid deliberate attention to that pipeline, which is what you see happening in Zambia right now, right? So we have the Banda and the Kodanaji up there, and those ones are now pulling funds back to say, hey, we want more we want more Bandas, we want more Kodanaji. And then you saw them, in the recent under 17. So yes, definitely shout out to Zambia, shout out to Morocco. However, I also want to spotlight Kenya. Kenya had not made a FIFA appearance before the last under 17. And though if all they did was I think they won a match. Yes, they did. Did they win or draw? But they made an appearance. I remember when they scored their first goal, the old Kenya jubilated as if they had just won the gold medal. Because for them, that was the first goal that a female team from Kenya will be scoring. And I think that I'm delighted this is happening because it's now sending a message to the supposed powerhouses, it's Nigeria and South Africa, to say, hey, we are also developing our talent and we are coming. So yeah, just the country.
Just one more question: what's the biggest need for a female footballer coming from Africa?
That's a very unique question. I think that the biggest need, I would have said, pipeline development and everything, but it's literally hand holding. So I'll give to you.
Wait, say that again. It's literally what?
Hand holding.
Hand
Nobody
holding.
is hand holding this talent. I'll give an illustration. The biggest talent of Africa today is Asisa Oshoala. Let me tell you an interesting gist about Asisa Oshoala that people do not know. The year before 2014, that was 2012, Asisa Oshoala played at the under 20 and she played as a midfielder, right? When she got back home to Nigeria, our local club in Robo FC? Yeah, Robo FC told her to tell the national coach that, hey, I know you have the characteristics of a midfielder, but I coached you here as an attacker. So I don't want you playing midfield. I want you playing in the attack. And then the next year, which was 2014, Asisa says, I'm sorry, I'm not training as a midfielder anymore. I am playing locally as an attacker. And for the team, under 20, I want to play as an attacker. And that was the year that she scored 8 goals, breaking the first, goal scoring record at under 20. Won the golden boot, won the golden everything there was, except the golden trophy. And then the following year, signed with Liverpool and won the inaugural BBC African of the Year. If she did not have a local coach and holding her, despite the spotlight that was cutting her, she might not have had a career this successful. And that is what is missing. So we see very young stars at under 17 or under 20, but 2 years after, where are they? Nobody sat, in our language, they will say nobody sat on their case. Nobody advised them. Nobody said, oh, don't sign for this big club. Actually, you should sign for a mid-level club where you will get more playing time than sign for a big club that gives you money but does not give you playing time. So it's those little guardians, those deliberate hand-holding that is really missing, for a typical African woman.
So little guardians, I love that term because I do feel like one of the things that a lot of sort of non-African places, and New Zealand's a place where a lot of people have to go somewhere else to make a name for themselves, and there's lots of little guardians, just a network of people sorting them out and trying to think for them and trying to envision careers, and whether it be agents or just friends or coaches, I do think, academies that Africa is missing, that, or could develop that more, that sort of little guardians where people have the network to put people in the right spaces. I think one of the reasons that there were at least a couple African players in the NWSL historically was, they had a coach who was, formerly from South Africa and went to Houston. But now, so walk us through. Okay, so I'm a big NWSL fan. Walk us through.
Let's do that.
Some of the most expensive players in the world, and how that makes you feel, and where they landed.
No, we were mind blown in February, right? When we heard the news of Kondanaje. We had followed, we were all, of course, saddened by the ACL injury last year and how she couldn't make the World Cup, because we were really looking forward to that. Despite the fact that we're Nigerians, as an average African, you want to see a brilliant player like Kondanaje play in the World Cup. And so we had just monitored the progress up to that. And then, of course, we had followed the BFC news, because BFC had also signed as a social before announcing Kondanaje. And then first, it wasn't even just the money for us. It was that, oh my God, she's going from Spain to NWSL. It's America. America invests in sports. America has the media, that's more visibility. And then we see the numbers and we're like, oh my God, are you serious? The most expensive player in the world is Kondanaje. Wow, Africa to the world, right? No, so that was super inspiring for two reasons. One, when my friends asked me why am I interested in women's football, I said, you know what? Women's football is a complete cycle. More awareness leads to more audience. More audience leads to more revenue. And then more revenue leads to more wages. So the more people watch the game, the more the participants of the game are able to earn. Right? So that was even like the number one win for us. It means that the fact that a player can even be valued this much, it means that senior players like Puteas, like Sam Kerr, if they want to say a new contract, they can begin to speak new numbers. So that was the first thing. And then the second, of course, is that this is not happening to an African, right? For a club that was just coming to the NWSL for the first time, it was really a monumental occurrence for us. Yeah, we were really delighted about that.
Let me put some numbers around that, because I'm a BFC fan. I'm from that era.
That's exciting.
Kunanji transfer fee was $860,000. Wow. So that's no joke. And they were building their team. They still did. They made it to the playoffs. They did well. Oshuala, fantastic. Anything else you want to highlight around Africans in the NWSL, because they have been lit. They have changed that league.
I can't keep talking. I can't at this point not spotlight Banda, of course. The other Zambian said, hey, do you know what? As you're going, I'm following you, right? We're going to walk that step to greatness. And just joined Orlando Pride, and I've just done magic. I read one interview about Martha and how Martha was just describing her as that missing link, that piece that they had been missing, and how immediately she blend. People talk a lot about Barbara Banda's speed. One thing they forget is how technically sound Barbara Banda is, because half of the time she's not even scoring goals, she's providing assists. At some point she was second on the rank of goals and third on the rank of assists. So you see players, for example, Temwa Chawinga scoring very high on goals. You see players like Martha scoring very high or assists, but to see an attacker, be able to score a lot of goals and still be able to provide a lot of assists, that's very unique. And just shout out to Barbara Banda for that. Another record that might have flown over the head.
Let me jump in about Barbara Banda, because she's just so good. And her transfer fee was $740,000. So
right?
That that
A
is
lot of
second
money.
highest, right? That's a lot of
Right?
money. And
Yes, it
she
is.
listen. There's a lot of pieces that made Orlando Pride go from just a really depressed kind of club, Haley Carter coming and wanting the best talent, and but Barbara Banda really has done incredible. At least she's up at least to 13 goals. But you're right around her assists. She's had at least 6 assists so far. The team is in the semifinals. They basically won the Shield, so they won. Their undefeated record was
Yeah.
phenomenal, and I know
Yeah.
they had like a defeat
Yeah.
or whatever, but
Yeah,
that
they
was
set the
after they
record.
won the
Yes, for
Shield.
the most goals, the most wins in a season.
Yep.
They actually set
Yeah,
a new record. Yeah.
it's such a
It's
special story, and
it's
Marta and
phenomenal.
Barbara Banda together is like it's just incredible to watch and
Yeah,
just to
yeah, yeah.
feel
It
their
is.
cool vibe.
Right,
You know,
right.
you
Yeah,
know.
so
So there's some records. So someone in the league that we haven't talked about broke Sam Kerr's record. You
so
ready?
actually,
Do you want?
yeah, yes, I am. Temwa Chawinga, that's her name. I think the fantastic thing about Temwa Chawinga is that she's been doing this consistently, right? And she won the IFHHS top scorer of the year last year. And then when she came into NWSL, the question is, will this excellence be repeatable? So it wasn't that she wasn't excellent. She's an amazing player. The physicality, the technicality, the game awareness. Sometimes you see her make some diagonal runs and you're like, oh, how did you even figure that? You see her wait for a ball for maybe Zanerato or another attacker in the team, and like she's already running ahead of the before the pass is made. Right, you see her position herself in some. She scored some poacher goals. She scored some long range shots, some headers. Like she's got all variant of goals. And she broke 2 records. One, she broke the incredible Sam Kerr. I mean, we are talking about Sam Kerr. The record has been on, and then she broke that. And she also set a new record of the player that have scored against all the clubs played against in a season. That is magnificent. I feel like throughout this year, we should all be talking about Temwa Chawinga. No, that's just absolutely phenomenal, right?
And she's such a joy to watch. I remember when she literally first took the field. It was like one of the first matches, and I think everyone was just absolutely stunned by her incredible energy and just her dynamicism. I mean, she's not a big person, right?
Yeah.
But she is fast. She is spot on with everything. She is on fire. I mean, just
Yeah, she is.
teams have just tried to wear her down, and it's a long season, the NWSL, but she has
Yeah, it is. I
really
think I
done
want.
some. Yeah,
Yeah, you're right. I think one defender that had a great time that really, struggled is Naomi Gama. I think that was like the only day I'm like, oh well, you did well. You kept your ground. I
yeah,
like it. Yeah, but she
yeah.
really showed a lot of defenders tough time, right? And I'm very sure she was a nightmare to a lot of
Yeah.
people.
Now,
Yeah.
Shawinga is from Malawi. Now, that's not
Yeah.
an important. Or
A
tell me,
powerhouse.
what is? I mean,
Yeah.
I know Malawi as a country, but I don't know Malawi as a. Do they
Oh,
compete in CAF? And
powerhouse. Right,
yeah,
and that's
cool.
a good talking point, right? Because aside Temwa Chawinga, we also have a sister, right? Tabitha Chawinga. Tabitha
Okay.
Chawinga has won the Player of the Season in 2 different leagues. She won the Player of the Season in Italian Serie A with Inter Milan. She was the highest goal scorer, so she won Golden Boots too. And then she went to France and won the best player of the season again, ahead of players like Diani, players like Egeberg, players like Kaitoto, right? Highest goal scorer player of the season. So there is some, and it just brings me back to the conversation of how there are just a lot of talents scattered here and there. Now, I think both Chawinga sisters are now back to their country, investing back in infrastructure development. I know the last summer break, they started an academy, just for kids between, I think, 11 and 17, a sort of development academy to unearth kids. People have been rooting for Malawi to make it to WAFCON 2025. I think that they are part of the qualifiers, and we are praying and hoping, that we see more stars, because we know Chawinga, but we also know that there are some upcoming Chawingas that we have not discovered, right? Just because they're in Malawi, they are not in Nigeria, or Ghana or South Africa. And that's literally the coordinated talent pipeline that the authorities, the administration need to pay more attention to. But yeah, it's great to see the Chawinga statistics put the country on the map. Right.
I think that's the biggest challenge of Africa in general is getting this talent from, you said 11 to 17, absolutely, and bubbling it up, because I am certain you're right, that there are many Chawingas out there, and you just got to get it going on.
Yeah.
How do players struggle to translate their club's performances, especially in global competitions, though?
Yeah, slightly. And slightly, I use the word slightly for different reasons, but slightly. And I'm just going to point out why. I mean, there's a time we say street football, because I also play street football growing up. We say class form is temporary, class is permanent. It means that wherever you are put in, as long as you are a class, you're going to shine either ways. And so that's why we say, Zambia might lose 3 matches, but Banda will still score an hat-trick, right? Because that's a clash, right? But there is a lot of I would say, psychological adjustment. So you see players that are playing with top teams that have top facilities, with top boots and top trainings and all that, and you see them come back home where it's few hours to the match, they don't know where their football boots are. It's not very minor, but that can be discouraging, right? Or you see a coach, they play with a top level coach, either they're playing in NWSL or Europe or whatever part of the world it is, they're playing with top tier professionals. We see a coaching team has like 5 or 6 assistants, performance manager, technical something, just different people catering to different part of the player. And then you see them come back to their national team where the government is owning the coach. How are they going to perform? Right. So there are always that one or two disparities that just shows the difference between the quality at club level versus what is put in place at country level. And you will just see again to African performance at the 2023 World Cup. I felt like the countries that shined despite the challenges they were facing, right? The Zambia, the Nigeria, the Morocco, the South Africans. I felt like it just came together and said, you know what? We are just going to show the world that class is permanent, and we are going to do that, right? Yeah, but that's literally the difference. First, the psychological adjustment to the differences in quality, and then second is just also the infrastructural disparity between both settings. The really 100 level thought provision at the club level versus the scarcity paucity resources at the country level. That's one of the contributions to the outcome. So the same player, different conditions, different outcomes. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that is like a theme in women's football. The federations that care and put the money and put their ethical best foot forward. I mean, there's some, all over the globe, there's some weird stuff that happens in some of these federations, and it's like, no. But I feel like the more and more that countries see this as a way to promote their national heritage and their people and their love, that hopefully less and less of sort of that weird stuff happens, and more of these players emerge as heroes for. So
Right.
who are some of the heroes that you feel are over the last 5 years, that you can really look to as they've done it right? We've mentioned some. Anyone else you want to mention coming out of Africa in the last 5 years?
The players, right? I mean, outside the ones that are heavily spotlighted, I think that I'm really delighted that we have a goalkeeper like Chiamaka Inadozie. I feel like the media does not give her enough attention and enough spotlight, but I think she's done amazingly well. She's in her third season with Paris FC. I thought that our first 2 seasons were phenomenal, especially that debut season at the Champions League. Keeping out Wolfsburg, keeping out Arsenal, those were stellar performances that will not be forgotten in a long while. Another player I really want to spotlight that doesn't get enough charisma is Ghislaine Chebak. Ghislaine Chebak is the captain of Morocco, and I think that she plays with a Spanish club. I have to quickly confirm that, but I know that like I watch her in and out. Yeah, she plays with Levante, right? I've watched that. I've watched a couple of her matches in Levante, and just the way she dominates the midfield, the style, I feel like if she was playing with like a big club, maybe like Sevilla, like Real Madrid, people would pay attention to her more. Again, because she has matured a lot before she reached that European spotlight. I felt that might have affected the kind of attention that she gets. But if you go to YouTube or if you stay and watch highlights of this Dane Chebak, you would see that that's a star right there. I do not want to mention, I'm trying not to mention a lot of Nigerians, but I have to spotlight Rashidat Ajibade, right? Rashidat Ajibade has been absolutely phenomenal in the La Liga. I mean, she won player of the month very recently. I can't remember for which of the months. I feel like Ajibade is one of those very silent, very humble until you give them the ball, right? And then you see the magic that they can do. I remember very vividly Nigeria and Brazil. She tormented that right side of Brazilian team. The coach had to change the formation like twice just to contain her, right? I feel like maybe she needs to change her club. Maybe she needs to maybe move out of La Liga or move to like a top club that can help harness her better and give her the spotlight. But Ajibade is one brilliant superstar that I can't wait to come up, just reach that next level of a footballer. So yeah, just three people for now.
So those are anyone else that we should be watching for over the next 2-3 years?
Well, over the next 2 3 years, I think that you should keep an eye out for. I'm trying to remember. There is a Ghanaian midfielder that is coming to my head right now. I think that her name is Yeboah. Yeah, she played in the recent under 20, right? And then just this. Wow, I cannot believe that I cannot remember her name. There was this under 20 Cameroon midfielder just very recently. She was one of the, I think she scored like 4 goals in 3 matches. Yes, Injoa Eto. Yeah, that's her name. She plays with a club in France. She's still very much in the developmental stage. She's 20, right? But when you see what she's doing at 20, it's just like the way I was referencing Nasrin El Chad earlier. Again, back to handholding. These are players that we should have people sitting them down to say, hey, this club that you are right now is not where you need to be. You need to begin to eye an A club that is playing in Europe. Maybe not the Barcelonas or the Real Madrids. Maybe it's the Galatasaray, right? For example, one of the players that we respect a lot in Africa is Christian Uchebe, right? The reason why we respect Christy Uchebe a lot is because she plays for Benfica. Those are the kind of development. One, for example, another player is Blessed Dimeyi. Blessed Dimeyi went for playing, with Lille. No, not Lille. She played with Imran at Reims. Yes, State the Reims. And now she's playing with Galatasaray. Galatasaray is playing Champions League football. She's developing capacity. She's defending against the Dianes, the Egebergs, right? And then you will just say that the kind of development she will experience over the next 2 years will be totally different from someone that is playing like a B club or a C club, right? So, yeah, so maybe I would add Blessing Dimeyi and just Unjoa Eto of Cameroon to those lists. Yeah.
Okay. I have one more question in this section. What do these names, these people that you mentioned all through this podcast, what do they mean to particularly the girls in the country that they're from?
No, I think that they are symbols of hope and they are beacons of excellence, right? We had it at Fevora. I know we're going to talk about that. We had a little conversation with some entrants at Robo FC. Robo FC is a local club. And they were just mentioning about how at home they can confidently say, I want to play ball because I want to be like Asisa Oshola. And everybody listens. A typical South African girl can say, I want to play football. I want to be like Tembi Katlana or Linda Mothalo or Hilda Magai. And their parents listen. Why? Because they've seen these big names on the screen. They've seen these names take their country to global stage. They've seen these names put their country on global map. So it's literally 10 years ago. If you tell your mother that you want to be a footballer, they will say for yeah. like we say in our language, right? Where do you want to do that? But now it's like they've shown a career path to success. They've shown that I can play football and make global impact. So I'd say they are beacons of hope, they are symbols of inspiration. Yeah.
So I think you just touched on it, Emmanuel, Fevora. So that's a platform that you've co-founded with a few of your
Yes, please.
partners.
Yeah.
Kind of what is it, and why did you found that?
That's a good question to ask. So Fevora is like your one-stop hub for real-time data and stories about African women football. Why did we co-fund it? We funded it just a month before the Women World Cup, right? We literally just wanted to create awareness. Remember what I thought when I described the value of the women football. So on our own side in Nigeria, we know that a lot of people love women football, but they do not have enough accurate information about the game. Where to watch the game, how to watch the game, who are the players, what are the players, where do they play, what have they done outside Nigeria, outside South Africa. So we just wanted to just create a buzz. In fact, it started as a WhatsApp community. I don't know if you guys use WhatsApp, but for us, it was just WhatsApp at first, right? Just a group of exciting people. We share fixtures, we share where they can watch the matches. And then we realized that there is a paucity of knowledge and there is scarcity of accurate information because someone will just come on the group and say, oh, Australia is going to beat Nigeria 4-0. I will say, why? And they say, oh, because Australia have superstars. So you don't know that Nigeria has superstars too. You don't know that Nigerian players play in this big club and this big club and this big club, and they are doing these great things. And so it was at first literally to fill that knowledge gap. But however, as we evolved, we realized that the gap was not just local, it was international. I don't know if you guys saw the scandal that happened with, I think it was, I don't know if it was, I don't want to mention names, but it was one of the global media last year where they awarded the top goal scorer to another name that was not Temwa Chawinga. And then journalists had to come and correct them that no, Temwa Chawinga was the highest goal scoring player. And I was telling people that say it's not their fault. There is nobody tracking this data because we are Africans and we said, do you know what? We are going to build a pipeline where when you are looking for any data that concerns African women football, you are going to come to our platform and you're going to find this data. So it's literally the combination of using accurate data to tell informed stories about African women football. That's what Fevora does in like one line.
So what is, like, for example, what's like the biggest story coming out of Africans football at the moment on Fevora, your platform?
Oh, great. So we worked on the African Women's Football Report this year, the first of its kind. That was another story entirely because we just wanted to do like a 5-page review, right, of what's happening in Africa. And then we had checked the biggest names, the BBC Sports, the Athletic, the just name it. And we realized that nobody had like a detailed database of what's happening in Africa right now. And we had just taken that up. And I think that the next big thing out of Africa at the moment, following up on the exploits of the NWSL, is how many African talents are we going to see first migrate from Europe to NWSL, given this recent success? Secondly, migrate from African to Europe. So we've seen, I mean, I just referenced Blessing Dimei. We've seen some young stars who are now one of our goalkeepers literally just signed for like French Division Club 2 very recently. We would say we know how this works, right? I mean, just the way it works in corporates, because 9 to 5, I'm an HR manager. A global company comes to recruit from Africa. The African talents do very well, and so they come back to recruit. And so I would be surprised if we see the same thing happen in NWSL and in Europe over the next few seasons, just because of how amazing and brilliant the impact of the NWSL, stars had this last season. So I tell you, my friends, watch out for Africans. We are coming. We are coming to NWSL and just everywhere in Europe. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a really great movement that you're pushing, because I think it's kind of a thing that's needed throughout the whole world, because the mainstream media sometimes doesn't pick up on women's football. I know it doesn't in New Zealand, or it doesn't pick up on any football in New Zealand,
Yeah.
let alone women's football. So that push is needed from elsewhere, and I think Fevora, it's great at pushing that, and I think it's kind of something that Impetus does as well.
Yes,
pushes those
yes, yes.
stories.
Impetus
But
does amazing work. Just telling the story of Australians. Shout out to you guys, writing about Australia and New Zealand. I, as an African, just learn a lot about the A League reading those posts. So well done.
yeah. So how can people access Fevora?
Oh yeah, you can follow us on Twitter, Fevora NG, and then we also have a Substack where we write every week. So fevorasubstack.com. I think I've also shared the link so that as people listen to the podcast, they can access. We also have a very free encompassing African women report. If you Google Fevora on Seller, you would see it and you'll be able to download it from any part of the world. But we would also share the link of that. So just Google Fevora, Felvora, and we would come up.
I think that's a great place to land, and we'll put all that information in the show notes for sure. Emmanuel, thank you so much for being on this podcast and sharing your joy and your passion and your data on women's football. I mean, I know it's all of those things. And Alex, thank you again for being in Wellington, New Zealand, keeping it real. And then myself, Denise Duffy, here on Impetus. So thanks again, and great that we're all sharing our love for women's football. And subscribe to the Impetus podcast. And again, thanks to both of you.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone. If you're listening thus far, follow Impetus Football on all platforms, please. We tell exciting stories about women football in Africa, in Australia, across the globe. Follow us and subscribe to our podcast.